You're listening to PetLifeRadio.com.
You've had a long day at work, and you can't wait to just get home, take off your shoes, plop yourself down in your favorite chair, and relax. You walk up to your tranquil residential home and your neatly manicured lawn in your quiet suburban neighborhood, put the key in the lock, open the door, and... Yes, the pets have gone wild! What were you thinking? Welcome to the show about everything you always wanted to know about exotic pets. Where to get them, what to feed them, and how to care for them. You'll even find out why some people live with a monkey. Now, here's your host, exotic pet expert and author Bob Tart. Hey, Bob, what were you thinking?
Linda, I'm glad you came in. I just taught Dusty to say the name of our show, What Were You Thinking?
You did?
Yeah, listen. Dusty, what were you thinking? What were you thinking, hon? Say it, Dusty, what were you thinking?
What did I say?
Did you hear him? He said it.
You didn't teach him that. You said, what does a duck say?
No, it's as clear as a bell. He said, what were you thinking? Didn't you, Dusty? Listen. Dusty, what were you thinking? What were you thinking? Dusty, what were you thinking?
What did the duck say? Merry Christmas.
See, he said it.
He said, what does a duck say, Merry Christmas?
No, it isn't anywhere near Christmas.
Well, that's what he said.
Oh well, our show's about ducks today anyway, so there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Hi, I'm Bob Tart, author of the books Enslaved by Ducks and Foul Weather. You're listening to What Were You Thinking? A weekly internet radio show about exotic pets, and exotic pets means anything pretty much except dogs and cats. Joining me today and every week is my wife, Linda. Hey, Linda.
Hello, how you doing?
Good. Everyone's good too, I think. And we're going to talk about keeping ducks as pets today. And we have some experience with ducks, don't we?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. First, we're going to talk to Kelly Meister. Kelly lives in Perrysburg, Ohio, and she has an interesting story to tell about ducks. After that, Linda will talk about what kind of pets ducks make and what kind of requirements they have. Now, ducks aren't a particularly difficult pet to keep, but you have to get set up right in the beginning, and then you have to be prepared for a pet that can live as long as 25 years. Now, I should mention, you're going to hear birds in the background. We got a dove named Howard who coos. Mm-hmm. We got parakeets. What are the parakeets' names?
Harvey and Sheila.
Yep, Harvey and Sheila. And then, of course, we have Dusty, the African gray parrot, and you heard him talk a little while earlier, and Bella, another African gray parrot. So, as I've said before, we had the chance to do this show from a fancy pants studio at a 7-figure salary, but Linda and I said no.
Oh, no.
Nope, that's not for us. Instead, we're doing this show for no salary at all, right from our dining room.
That's right.
Yep, that's how famous we are. So, right now, I'm going to get to my phone call with Kelly. Before I do, though, there's one little matter I want to discuss. Now, book events, I wrote Enslaved by Ducks and Foul Weather, as I can't mention too many times. And now, book events where I go to promote my book, they're always an embarrassment. I drive 100 miles and I end up talking to 5, 6, maybe if I'm really lucky, 7 people. Well, last spring, Kelly Meister arranged an appearance for me at Books-A-Million bookstore in Perrysburg, Ohio. And the day before the event, Kelly had arranged a photo opportunity at Simmons Pond with reporters from 2 local newspapers. But it didn't turn out exactly the way I planned. And to judge for yourself, and to see Kelly in action and how she bested me with members of the press, go to my website, bobtart.com, and watch a video of the event. Now, it's kind of a high-resolution video, and it takes a little while to load, but it's worth waiting for. Or you can go to youtube.com, and you can see it there. You can see a grainy version of it there, but whichever version you see, it's pretty darned embarrassing.
Very entertaining.
Yeah, very entertaining.
What Were You Thinking? We'll be right back after Bob gets the ducks out of his living room. Don't go away.
Here's the story of a lovely lady who was bringing up 3 very lovely gulls. Join us every week on Wings and Things with your host, Susan Chamberlain, and get a bird's eye view of everything there is to know about pet birds and how to make your frequent flyer a happy camper. Wings and Things. That's the way we became the Birdie Bunch. Only on PetLifeRadio.com.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com. Okay, ducks are in the pond, rabbits in his hutch, and monkeys... Oh, in my car! Oh, okay, well, I go check my insurance policy. We'll turn you back over to Bob.
I'm speaking with Kelly Meister, the crazy critter lady from Perrysburg, Ohio, just south of Toledo. Now, lots of people I know have ducks as pets. I mean, you can't resist them, right?
Right.
Okay. But Kelly is unique because she takes care of pet ducks that don't belong to her. Now she doesn't break into duck pens at night, though I wouldn't put it past her because she is the crazy critter lady. But what Kelly does, and this is just out of the kindness of her heart, is that she cares for pet ducks that other people have abandoned. And these are ducks on Simmons Pond, a few miles from her house. Kelly feeds them, but that's just the beginning, and we'll get to that. But to start with, Kelly, how the heck did the ducks get on Simmons Pond in the first place?
Well, as you know, because you've been there, it's a pretty big pond, and you can see it from the highway. So there may have been people driving by who thought, hey, that's a good place to dump ducks. And I think that once there were a couple of ducks out there, it sort of snowballed where people thought, well, there's already ducks of that, of that size and shape, so it'll all be one big happy family. We'll just dump a few more.
Yeah, people might want to know, well, why can't ducks just take care of themselves? We see them all the time.
Sure. Well, mainly because they're not made to or bred to do that. They don't have survival instincts. They don't have scrounging and eating instincts like the wild mallards. They fully expect you to come and feed them.
And we're talking in some cases about like big white barnyard ducks, and they're hybrids, right?
Right. Oh, there's golly. Well, the white ones I just refer to them as Aflac ducks because everybody knows what the Aflac duck looks like.
Yeah.
But you also have, especially down at Simmons Pond, these ducks that are they look exactly like wild mallards, but they're 3 or 4 times bigger, and they're called roans. And they're also under the heading of domestic ducks. There are, I don't know, you would probably know better than I, 6 or 7 or 8 different breeds that come under the heading of domestic ducks, and they're all intended to just be in a barnyard. They can't fly.
That's the problem. I mean, that's a big problem. Not only can't they, get food for themselves, although ducks are pretty good foragers up to a certain extent, but they can't fly if there's a problem.
Right. And there are so many at this particular pond and probably elsewhere in similar situations, so many predators. You've got hawks, you've got snapping turtles, you've got the neighborhood dogs and cats.
And kids.
Raccoons.
And kids throwing stones.
Yeah, mean children is a big one, actually, bigger than you'd realize.
Oh, I know it. And you feed the ducks, right?
I feed them 5 days a week, and I give them weekends off because I figure everybody can use a break from me sooner or later.
Yeah, and you're not going there throwing bread.
No. I have, after a certain amount of research, I've come up with this mixture of cracked corn and, believe it or not, cat food.
Oh, yeah.
And I mix that together, and they seem to like the cat food. I've introduced that recently. I took your advice once, tried to mash up some vegetables, and they didn't want anything to do with them.
It may be an acquired taste.
Well,
I didn't like
kale all that much.
Right. And it took me a while to learn to love my vegetables.
Right, there you go. So I feed them a mixture of that, and actually, Pretty Boy, one of my favorite ducks, is recovering from an abscess in his wing.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because you don't just feed these ducks. You are good enough to take them to a vet and pay for it yourself.
Yeah, well, that suddenly changed, though. The good news is I managed to get the animal control officer, who I've been working with, and he's a real nice guy, and because he knows what I'm doing down there, taking care of them, he talked to the veterinary clinic that the city uses for, stray animals and whatnot. And I'm taking them to the vet, but now the city is paying for it, which I just love.
Oh, that's great.
It helps a huge amount, but
it's no small task catching these ducks and taking them somewhere.
Right, well,
Ducks are stronger than you think. I don't know how your ducks are.
Put up a fight.
Yeah, I mean, if you get hit with a duck's wing and it hits you in the jaw, I think it might be able to knock you out.
It would definitely leave a mark for sure.
Yeah.
You have to scoop. You have to scoop and run. You can't hesitate. You can't, worry about, is he struggling? Is he going to get away? You just have to scoop and wrap up those wings and drop him in the carrier as quick as you can. And I'm lucky that I have a good rapport with them. So they come up close when we feed, and that goes on 5 days a week, year after year. So they're not really expecting me to grab, but they do get close enough that I can grab. And Pretty Boy, who I grabbed with the abscess in his wing, behaved very well at the vet and needs medication, actually, which I have to go down and give specially. And for that reason, I am giving him bread because all the medicine is powdered, and I, mash it up in the bread, and he just thinks he's eating bread.
And he's a Flintstones kid, isn't he?
He's a Flintstone kid now. They prescribe children's vitamins to counteract some side effects from the antibiotics, so he's getting twice as much bread, and he has no idea why.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And now what's the deal with fishing line?
Oh, my goodness. There's every time I go down there, because they stock the pond with fish, and kids fish, and grown-ups fish, and every time I go down there, I find lengths of fishing line. A lot of times a hook is still attached, just lying on the ground because people are very careless about this. And there have been some really awful things happening. The worst was a wild mallard that got line wrapped around his leg so tightly that about 2 weeks after this happened, his leg rotted away and fell off. It was just heartbreaking.
Now, how did he do without the leg?
He actually, they bounced back pretty good.
Yeah.
And he managed to sort of peg leg around after it healed up on dry land. But, you don't want to be
Heck no.
responsible for that. And he was a wild mallard, so he never came close enough for me to grab. But I found this spring one of the big domestic ducks literally tied to a branch in a shrub because she'd gotten caught up in this, and she was trying to nest under this shrub. And when I found her, she had no room to move. She was trapped.
So you're doing this every day? You do it in the winter?
Yes.
You do it all the time?
Do it in the winter. The winter they get more food, and they act different in the winter. It's funny. They get jumpy, even though they're perfectly safe, but they seem to sense that it's hunting season. And they don't come as close. They don't stay as long at the feed. They kind of wait for me to leave so they can come back and, eat at their leisure. But I'm there, like I said, 5 days a week, all year round. I've been doing this since 2000, so it's 7 years now.
Well, good for you. And if people want to know more about you and a book you've written called
Crazy Critter Lady.
Crazy Critter Lady, which you're shopping around right now.
Yep.
They can go to your website, and that is crazycritterlady.com.
Yep.
And if they want to see Kelly in action,
Uh-oh.
they can go to my website, and they can see a video called Duckman versus the Crazy Critter Lady.
I do love that video, Bob.
Okay, good. And they need to go and see that and find out what it's about.
Yes, and there are pictures of all the ducks we've talked about on my website, so they can see them up close and personal.
Okay, and that's at crazycritterlady.com.
Yep.
All right, well, thanks, Kelly, for talking to me today.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, bye-bye. We'll be right back with more of What Were You Thinking after these potentially important messages.
What Were You Thinking? We'll be right back after Bob gets the ducks out of his living room. Don't go away. Having a rough day? Longing for the dog days of summer? Think your fun furry friend lives a dog's life? Well, find out everything you're begging to know as Pet Life Radio presents It's a Doggy Dog World with pet expert and award-winning author Liz Palaika. Every dog has his day, and you'll find out how to make your dog's day fun and rewarding. Every week, on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com. Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com. Okay, ducks are in the pond, rabbits in his hutch, and monkeys... Oh, in my car! Oh, okay, well, I go check my insurance policy. We'll turn you back over to Bob.
Hi, welcome back to What Were You Thinking? I'm your host, Bob Tart, author of Enslaved by Ducks in Foul Weather, and with me is my wife, Linda.
Hello.
And this is a show about exotic pets. And you know what? We would like to have you on as a guest to talk about your pet mice, your pet skunk, your parrot, your rabbit, your spider, your gecko, any interesting pet.
Anything unusual.
Yeah, anything unusual. Please email me at bob@petliferadio.com and you could be a guest on our show. Now, Linda has some thoughts about keeping ducks as pets, and she's going to tell you a little bit about the particulars of how to keep them.
Well, I just wrote down some things. We've had ducks for many years, and I just wrote down some things that I've been thinking about ducks. And one thing is they need a good-sized pen in order to move around and graze out in the fresh air and sunshine. They really love being outside.
Now, why shouldn't somebody just let their ducks stay outside all day?
Without a pen?
Yeah.
Well, they'll get eaten by raccoons or predatory birds, dogs in the neighborhood,
we've heard,
things like this.
We've heard too many times about people who have had a tragic event with their ducks because some neighbor's dog came over and got them.
That's exactly right. We've heard that many, many, many times, and it's from people who thought this would never happen, that the dogs are quite far away, and that would never happen. Trust me, it happens very routinely, and we know you don't want anything like that to happen to you.
Yeah, now we have a fenced-in yard, but even so, as Linda is telling you, we have a duck pen, and the ducks, they come out a couple times a day to graze, and but they
to have their water changed.
Yeah, and to walk around and just enjoy being out, but generally they stay in the pen.
That's right. Okay, it's much safer. The pen should have a separate section. And the reason for this is for a situation where one or more ducks do not get along well. Sometimes the boys and girls don't get along well, or the boys are aggressive certain times of the year. You need a separate section to put the ducks in that wouldn't be acting right for some reason. The feed they should be duck pellets. You can get that from your local mill or other stores that carry pet food.
Now, what about some people just feed scratch feed, which is, kind of a basic chicken feed. Is that a good feed for ducks?
It's not quite adequate as far as enough green materials in it. Duck pellets have more green material. It's more nutritionally complete. Duck pellets are. And we have heard from knowledgeable sources that it's better to give duck pellets. This is a good year-round feed that's better for them than scratch feed. You can add scratch feed to the duck pellets, but duck pellets is better for them than scratch feed.
Absolutely.
It's more nutritionally complete.
It's a good basic food.
Also, they need a source of green, such as either grass or graze them out on your lawn, or romaine lettuce cut up small. We sprinkle crumbs. It's a poultry feed rich in vitamins mixed in to make them more healthy. We just add a little bit to the top of the feed.
Now, speaking of greens, you said that they like to eat grass. So how did that work out with our lawn?
We didn't have a lawn left by the end of last fall, and we had to totally replant the backyard, reseed the backyard.
Yeah, now these are geese rather than ducks.
These were our geese.
But it's the same basic thing.
Same thing. If there had been ducks back there, the same thing would have happened.
So chances are, if you've got hungry ducks, you don't need a lawn service.
You will have nothing left.
Okay, so you were talking about the food again and the greens that you give them, because you like to supplement the duck food with kale or lettuce, and we give them table scrap. I don't know if you're mentioning that. We give them table scraps at night, too.
We also, during their egg-laying periods of the year, we give them oyster shells. You can get that at the mill and also at pet stores. Scratch feed can be mixed in with the duck pellets, as I mentioned before. They should have their water changed in their water buckets twice a day, because ducks are quite messy animals in a way, and they mess their water up pretty quickly. Yeah, so you want to change that a couple times a day.
Yeah, they like to root around in the mud with those beaks, and as soon as they dip the beak in their pool or in their water, muddy filthy. Water, we're always embarrassed when people come over to our house to visit us.
Looks like we haven't changed the water in 2 days, and perhaps it was changed 20 minutes before that time.
That's exactly right.
So pens should have either aviary netting on top or sturdy wire to protect them from predators. This is a very important point. It is not enough having a tall fence. I've heard more people say that, we have a tall fence. Not enough. Any raccoon can climb over, plus owls or other flying predators can swoop down and injure the ducks or kill them. We've heard many, many, many stories over the years where this exact thing has happened.
Yeah,
Very
and
common.
I should mention what aviary netting is.
You can order it.
Yeah, it's just a kind of netting that
Very sturdy.
some people make pens out of it. I wouldn't trust it for that, but it's just kind of I think it's a nylon netting. It's very strong.
Very heavily woven.
And you can order that. Another reason, I don't know if you're going to mention that or not, but for having a cover on your pen is that there's a few ducks. Most ducks are flightless, but there are...
Muscovies.
There's a kind of a... domesticated duck, and we're talking about domesticated ducks today.
these
We're
are
not
domesticated.
talking about wild ducks.
Right.
And there's a kind of domesticated duck called the Muscovy that could fly
They'll
right
fly
out
right
of
out of there.
Yep. But your other ducks, we might talk about that later if we have time, but they can't fly.
Right, most of them can't. So, duck and chicken pens both need a footing that goes down into the ground to protect from digging animals, such as the raccoons or other animals getting in. Or a 16-inch fencing laid down sideways, covered with dirt. How would you describe
Well,
that?
you
You'd
kind
lay it
of-
down flat
yeah, you
along
kind of-
the edge of the pen.
Yeah, your lower fencing, you kind of bend down the last several inches, maybe foot of it or so, and you kind of fold it so that that's bent down over the yard. Over the ground.
Cover it with dirt.
Cover it with dirt or something like that. And what Linda was talking about burying, that's what some people do too, is you kind of dig a trench around your pen, as you're building it, and then you have the wire that you're putting around your fence continue for maybe a foot down, if you can, in the trench, and then you fill the trench up with dirt again. And that way, if an animal tries to dig, they run into the fence.
They're going to run it. That's the absolute best way
It
to do
is.
it. And that's the way the veterinarians would tell you to do it.
Yep.
It's the safest way, and trust me, raccoons will try that sort of thing. It's very common for them to try to dig in. We have small children's pools filled twice a day with fresh water for our ducks. We've always done that. They're fed in the morning, and they are given a treat in the afternoon and in the evening. You want to always check their food dishes to make sure they got food. They love table scraps. They love bread, cut up bread, grasses, romaine lettuce. I should say head lettuce does not have hardly any nutritional value. Romaine lettuce does. It's greener. Things that are brighter green, of course, have more nutritional value. It's much healthier for your animals.
And if you want to really enjoy yourself, feed your ducks spaghetti. There's hardly any better sight than seeing ducks eating spaghetti. I wanted to say one more thing about fencing, and that is you don't want to use just any kind of fencing you find.
That's right.
There's a problem with raccoons, and that is that the raccoons, they can reach their hands in, and this sounds crazy, but it happens all the time.
Happens all the time.
They can reach their little paws in, and if there's a duck,
Sleeping by the edge.
they grab the duck and they kind of pull its head out, and you don't want to know the rest.
That's right.
So,
I forgot about that. Now, what would they use along the bottom?
well, we have something that's called hardware cloth, and hardware cloth
It's very
is
stiff and with little tiny squares.
yeah, it's only has a half-inch grid, and so that means that
Raccoons can't get their hands through
Nope,
it.
that means it's made up of squares that are only a half inch, and so they can't get their paws through there. And you don't have to necessarily do the whole pen in
No,
hardware
just the
cloth.
bottom part. How wide is that stuff?
I think ours is about maybe 30 inches tall with hardware cloth.
You just do it all the way around the bottom of the pen.
Right, and so if they were to climb and get higher than that, they wouldn't be able to reach a
Right,
duck
because the
anyway.
ducks would be down on the bottom
Yep,
part.
yep,
So
so-
it really is a very important point.
Yep, you want to use hardware cloth around the bottom, and then the higher part of the pen, you can just use any kind of sturdy fencing. I wouldn't use chicken wire.
Not chicken wire. It's too
It rusts.
flaccid. Yeah,
Yep.
it rusts and it's flaccid. What do you call that kind of wire that you did?
Well,
did
you
use?
just use stiffer fencing.
Stiffer
that's all.
fencing.
Yeah.
You want the pen tall enough to walk in.
Oh yeah, you should. Unless you like walking on all fours, maybe
right.
you like that.
You want a tall pen.
Okay, so are there some health issues with ducks, right?
Okay, if a duck is limping, which you might occasionally see that, if a duck is limping, check the bottom of their feet for a physical condition called bumblefoot. They have, it's where they've gotten a cut and bacteria has entered the cut and it's caused a deep infection. They'll need to go to the vet for this and get antibiotics. They will have that cleansed out. The vet will want to wrap that area, and they will have to be kept clean and dry for a period of time. We've had this happen with a couple of our ducks. It's very important to get them into the vet and get cleansed out.
You don't want them to get bumblefoot.
Because it goes throughout their entire system.
Yeah, I mean, we successfully treated it, but it's kind of a pain because you have to lance the injury.
It has to be lanced and cleansed thoroughly, and they have to be given, I can't remember if they give them antibiotic after that initial shot.
Yeah, I think so, because remember, we gave Richie a shot, I think. I think that was for the bumblefoot. But another thing, too, is I heard is your barn floor has a cement floor like ours does.
Needs to have straw on it.
Yeah, you need to have
straw
on it.
Hard on their feet.
The poor ducks, they have kind of tender feet. So.
And it's too hard on them walking on cement all the time. They need straw on that floor.
Now, you were talking before about the pellets, and I think one thing we notice is that when we feed our ducks better, their feathers look better.
Absolutely.
So you've got something to say about feather condition.
Yeah, if you notice that their feathers start looking kind of bad, well, sometimes if the feathers look badly, it might just be that they're molting. But if it's other times when you would think the feathers would be good, if you start to see kind of like brownish looking feathers that don't repel water properly and this sort of thing at odd times of the year, it's a sign. It can be a sign of an internal problem, such as parasites. A vet must be consulted about this to determine what it is. If there is another situation that we've had over the years where a preen gland, which is down at the base of their tail, where they get, it's lanolin that is in this preen gland, and they preen all their feathers, and that's what makes them waterproof. But if they start to get an infection in that preen gland, it's sore and they won't touch it. Then they won't preen themselves. And this will cause the feathers to get kind of brownish looking sometimes along the edge of the wings. And this is a real problem as it approaches winter. If they have poor feather condition and you're approaching winter, it's very important for a duck to be able to repel water and the elements outside, or they get sick. Respiratory infection. Yep. Very important for them to have good condition of their feathers going into winter.
Yeah, now another thing that can cause feather damage is lice. And
I forgot about that.
But you have to remember, if you have several ducks or geese, and just one of them has lice,
they'll all have it.
Well, or an alarm bell should go off and tell you that something is wrong.
With their immunity system.
Right, because sometimes with the ducks or the geese, if they're starting to get sick, their immunity system is down, and so while the others might be able to fight off the lice very easily,
they won't be able to. It's a bad sign.
No, we found that out too late.
With one of ours.
One of our geese had lice, and we didn't realize that.
We didn't know the reason.
Yep, and it turned out that she had been sick for a while. It's hard to tell with ducks and geese.
They don't show symptoms of illnesses very easily at all.
No, you got to be very vigilant.
Very vigilant, yes. If they act low energy, they're not eating well, they're not moving around as much as they used to, you might want to have them checked. There might be something like a respiratory infection. They can get respiratory infections overnight from some sort of chill or other, like if their feathers weren't good enough and it was too cold for a couple, 3 days, or it was wet for a couple, 3 days and their feathers didn't repel water. You want to have that checked right away. If they have a respiratory infection, it's very important to get onto that right away with a vet and have antibiotics administered.
Yep.
Ducks absolutely love mud puddles. This is just the way ducks are. So one thing that they love is to have the garden hose run out in their pen and let the streams of water make puddles, and that's one of their favorite things in the whole world. They love looking for worms when it's been where there's been rainy weather. The worms come up to the surface and they can get the worms. They love looking for bugs and worms. You can overturn rocks for them if there's some in their pen, and there might be worms there after a rain. This is something they would really they'd enjoy.
Yeah, that's a fun thing to do. We had our handyman Gary built our pen out in the back of the barn because I can't hammer a nail to save my life. And Gary was out there, and he had so much fun with our ducks and our chickens out there.
Very nice to
We
them.
have so many rocks in our yard. It's like I don't know what it is. It's like a field of boulders with a little soil on top.
That's it.
But anyway, Gary would turn rocks over, and the ducks and hens
all run over.
They
and
loved it.
Pluck and look for the worms.
And he got a kick out of that
very
too.
kindly person.
Yep. We're just about out of time, but we should say a little bit about there's many different kinds of ducks, domesticated ducks.
Yes.
We're going to talk about Muscovies more on another show, but 99% of the barnyard ducks are all actually descended from mallards. And
You'd never believe it, according to the colors.
Nope. And one of the most popular ducks is a white pekin. That's the big white.
Pure white duck. Looks like the Aflac duck.
Yep, the big white barnyard duck. And those are wonderful pets.
Very nice disposition. Get along well with others.
They seem to like people, too.
Yep.
And then there's ducks called khaki Campbells, which are brown
Kind of a
ducks.
brownish, reddish, pale color.
And some people are just crazy about Indian runner ducks.
They have a long neck.
Yeah, and they're very upright. I think they kind of
Very
look like a wine bottle with legs.
There you go.
Yeah, or a bowling pin. And what other kinds of ducks? I guess there's black and white cayuga or black cayuga.
Right.
There are lots of ducks. And there's even miniature call ducks. We had one we really loved named Peggy.
Oh, she was a doll.
Yeah, she was a doll. And even though she was about, a third of the size, a quarter of the size
She
of
was
the
the
other,
leader of the group.
she bossed everybody around.
Everybody toed the line for her.
They did.
And then Ruins, aren't they? How do you spell it?
Roans, I think, or something.
They're a version of a mallard.
Yeah,
they're
they're
a
a big-
domesticated version of a mallard.
Yeah, they're a big fat mallard that I think was originally raised for meat because they're so
Probably.
heavy. But
Right,
some
that's
people
probably what
keep
pekins were
them
raised
as
for, too.
pets. So we'll talk more about ducks on other shows, and I'm hoping that we're going to get people on who have house ducks.
We would love that.
Because I've gotten lots of emails from people who keep ducks in the house.
That's right.
I wouldn't do it.
No.
No, we got enough problems
Got
with
enough
our
mess in the house without
yeah,
ducks.
Yeah. So I also want to mention, if you want to learn more about day-to-day life with ducks and geese, well, read my books, Enslaved by Ducks.
Lots of stuff in there.
Lots of stuff about Linda and I and how we got our ducks and what our
Little
life is
stories.
like. And same with Foul Weather. Foul Weather continues the story. And they're available in bookstores everywhere. You can get them online. So buy them both and contribute
Yes.
to our ability to continue
the Animals
to
Fund.
feed our animals. So, okay, so that's about it for this week's episode of What Were You Thinking? So thank you, Linda. And we'd also like to thank our guest, Kelly Meister. And please
Thanks, Kelly.
visit her website, crazycritterlady.com. And I'd like to thank Pet Life Radio and our very mysterious producers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It's easy to be part of the show. Just email us at bob@petliferadio.com. That's bob@petliferadio.com.
What did the duck say? Merry Christmas. What did the duck say? Merry Christmas. Oh, duck man.
Thinking about buying a monkey? How about a ferret or a skunk? Then check out the show that will answer the burning questions: where do you get them? What do you feed them? How do you take care of them? And most of all, what were you thinking? With exotic pet expert and author Bob Tart, every week on demand from PetLifeRadio.com.